Hi, today I'm continuing to play Minecraft and have prepared two interesting stories about family relationships for you. Without further delay, here's the first story. The earliest memory I have of my father is him looking disappointed. I must have been 4, maybe 5. I was holding up this mess of a crayon drawing, some spaghetti-limbed dinosaur with a sun that looked more like a splat, and I remember how proud I felt handing it to him. He looked at it for maybe half a second, then said, "You used too many colors. Real dinosaurs weren't purple." That memory sits heavy in my chest like a bruise that never healed. I didn't understand it at the time, but something in me folded inward a little that day. Like a part of me decided not to reach out so much anymore. Still, I kept trying. I was always trying. My younger brother, Evan, came along 2 years later and it was like the world shifted. He cried. Dad came running. He laughed. Dad laughed louder. When Evan showed him his scribbles, Dad clapped and stuck them on the fridge like they were masterpieces. I remember standing in the kitchen, watching Evan's shaky letters hang next to a World's Best Dad magnet, and wondering what made his art better than mine. It wasn't just art. It was everything. Evan got the louder cheers at baseball games, even when he struck out. I once scored the winning goal in soccer and Dad told me I got lucky. I used to think maybe if I could just be better, smarter, faster, quieter, he'd see me. But no matter what I did, it was like he looked right through me. And Mom, she saw it. I know she did. Sometimes she'd sneak into my room after a bad night, sit on the edge of my bed and rub my back. "He's just tired, honey. He works hard. He doesn't mean it." But he did mean it. And one day, he'd say it out loud. I was 13 when I started keeping a journal. I never meant to be one of those kids scribbling secrets and dreams into a notebook, but I needed somewhere to put the things I couldn't say out loud. Like how I hated the way Dad's voice made my stomach clench, or how every time Evan got praised, it felt like a reminder that I wasn't enough. Mom once found my journal. I came home from school and she was sitting on my bed holding it. She looked up, eyes red, and said nothing, just handed it back and walked out of the room. We never talked about it. But after that, she stopped saying, "He doesn't mean it." School was my escape, at least for a while. I had this English teacher, Mr. Kelman, who once wrote on one of my essays, "You think deeply. Don't stop." That paper stayed folded in my wallet for years, until it disintegrated from use. At home, it was the usual. Evan would break a lamp and Dad would laugh it off. I'd leave a plate in the sink and get a lecture about responsibility. Evan got a new bike for his birthday. I got a sweater 2 sizes too big. He hugged Dad and called him the best. I just watched from the corner. The resentment grew slowly, like water dripping into a glass. For years I kept thinking, maybe if I did better. Maybe if I got straight A's. Maybe if I cleaned the whole house. Maybe if I disappeared for a while and came back different. But that glass? It finally overflowed. It was a Tuesday. I'd gotten a C on a math quiz. Evan had just made the honor roll. And dinner that night changed everything. I don't even remember exactly what I said. Something small. Maybe I rolled my eyes. Maybe I muttered something under my breath when Dad was praising Evan for tying his own damn shoes like he'd won a Nobel Prize. Dad slammed his fork down. The clatter made Mom flinch. "What did you say?" he barked. I tried to play it off. "Nothing. Just, never mind." "No. Say it again. Go on. Say it." I looked up. That was my mistake. You always have something to say, don't you? Always looking for attention. Always bitter. You know what your problem is? You were a mistake. You hear me? A damn mistake. The silence afterward was louder than his shouting. I looked at Mom. She didn't look at me. Her hands were shaking in her lap. Evan stared at his plate like he wanted to disappear. I stood up. My legs were trembling. I remember that so clearly. It felt like my body knew what was happening before my brain caught up. I walked to my room, grabbed the duffel bag I used for gym, stuffed it with whatever I could, socks, underwear, a hoodie, my journal. When I came back down, Dad was in the living room watching TV. Didn't even turn his head. "Where do you think you're going?" he asked without looking at me. "Out." He snorted. "Good. Maybe you'll finally learn something out there." And just like that, I walked out the front door. Into the night. Into nowhere. It was colder than I expected. Early spring, but the kind of night that gnaws at your bones. I didn't even have a coat, just that old hoodie. My fingers were already numb when I reached the park near our neighborhood. I sat on a swing, gripping the chain links, trying not to cry. But I was 14, alone, and scared. Of course I cried. Hours passed. At some point I lay down on one of the wooden benches. It smelled like mildew and beer. I pulled the hoodie over my face and tried to sleep. My stomach ached, partly from hunger, partly from whatever was happening inside me. Like something had cracked open and wouldn't stop bleeding. Around dawn, I heard footsteps. "Boy," a gravelly voice said. I flinched. "You all right?" I sat up, blinking against the light. A man in his 70s stood a few feet away, holding a steaming cup of coffee in one hand and a paper bag in the other. He wore a coat that looked too big for him and a face lined with time. "You look like hell," he said, but not unkindly. I didn't answer. He came closer and offered the bag. "It's just a sandwich," he said. "Egg and cheese. I made it. You can throw it away if you want." I took it. I don't know why I trusted him. Maybe it was the way he didn't ask too many questions. Or maybe I just needed someone to care, even a little. He sat beside me, sipped his coffee. After a while, he said, "You got somewhere to go?" I shook my head. "Then you better come with me." And I did. His name was Harold. He lived in a faded yellow house 4 blocks from the park, with peeling paint and a yard overrun by stubborn weeds. Inside, it smelled like dust and peppermint tea. There were old clocks on every wall, some ticking, some long dead. "You can stay in the den," he said, like it was the most natural thing in the world to bring a runaway kid into your home. "It used to be my son's room." That's all he said about the son. I didn't ask. He didn't pry either. Not at first. He just gave me a blanket, made me grilled cheese, and told me I could shower if I wanted. I stayed the night. Then the next. Then a week passed. Each morning, Harold made breakfast and read the paper out loud like a podcast made just for me. He had this deep, steady voice that made even weather forecasts sound wise. He didn't treat me like a child or a burden. He just treated me like I mattered, like I existed. "You like books?" he asked one afternoon. "Yeah." "Then come with me." We walked to a second-hand bookstore where he bought me a tattered copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. I read it in 2 days. On the 3rd day, I called him Sir. He grunted and said, "That's too stiff. Just call me Harold. Or hey, maybe one day you'll call me something better." I didn't know what he meant. Not then. Time passed in strange ways with Harold. Some days felt like moments. Others stretched long and quiet, but never uncomfortable. He had a patience that felt endless, like he'd already lived through all the noise and didn't mind the silence. One afternoon, maybe a month after I moved in, he came back from the hardware store with a set of tools and said, "You're going to learn how to fix a cabinet today." I stared at him. I've never fixed anything. Then it's a good day to start. He showed me how to sand, how to measure, how not to over-tighten a hinge. It took hours. I messed up more than once. But he never raised his voice. Never called me stupid. When we finally finished, he patted the wood and said, "Not bad. That's yours now. You built it." That cabinet sat in the den next to the old recliner. Every time I saw it, I felt a flicker of something I couldn't name back then. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was healing. Harold never brought up my parents. But one night, I did. "I think my mom loved me," I said quietly, but she let it happen. She let him say it. She let him kick me out. Harold didn't say anything for a long while. Then he said, "Sometimes love gets tangled up in fear. Doesn't mean it didn't exist. Just means it wasn't enough to protect you." And I felt that. Deep. I stayed with Harold through that spring and well into the summer. We fell into a rhythm. Mornings meant oatmeal and the crossword. Afternoons, I helped in the garden, or we'd fix something broken in the house. There was always something. Nights were for reading or watching black and white movies I didn't understand at first but came to love. He started calling me kid, then later, son, so softly the first time I almost missed it. But I didn't. I never missed anything like that. By August, Harold had enrolled me in a small public school nearby. I didn't want to go back. I told him I'd rather work. He said, "You can do both. But you're going to finish school." I didn't argue. Not because I agreed, but because I think I wanted to make him proud. School wasn't easy. I was the new kid with old shoes and bruises that had already healed but never faded. I kept my head down, focused on the work. I stopped trying to win anyone over. It was easier that way. But Harold kept showing up, for everything. Parent-teacher meetings, science fairs, one time even a detention conference. He just listened and afterward handed me a peppermint and said, "You'll do better next time." The first time a teacher said, "Your dad's waiting for you in the office," I felt like the floor shifted. My throat went dry. But there he was. My dad. Not the one who kicked me out. The one who took me in. And just when things felt stable, something unexpected happened. It started with coughing. Harold had this deep, rattling cough that wouldn't go away. He brushed it off, said it was just the dust or maybe too many winters without a proper furnace. But after a few weeks, even I could tell something was wrong. One morning I found him in the kitchen, sitting down mid-breakfast, breathing heavy, sweating like he'd just run a mile. I panicked. He waved me off. Just tired. Been pushing too hard. But I called an ambulance anyway. At the hospital, they ran tests. I sat in that stale white waiting room feeling like I was 10 years old again, waiting to be told I'd done something wrong. When the doctor finally came out, he didn't smile. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Advanced. He'd known for months but hadn't told anyone. Harold shrugged from his bed. Didn't want to make it a thing. I wanted to yell at him. Shake him. But all I could do was sit by the edge of the bed and hold his wrinkled, calloused hand. He looked at me and said, "You're going to be all right. You've already come farther than most." But I wasn't ready to lose him. Not now. Harold came home with an oxygen tank and a list of medications that filled half a drawer. He moved slower, slept more, but still insisted on making his own toast every morning. "A man should butter his own bread as long as he can," he'd grumble, shaking off my attempts to help. I picked up a part-time job after school, sweeping floors at a grocery store. The manager liked me because I showed up early and never complained. I used the money to help with groceries, meds, and little things around the house Harold pretended not to need. Some nights I'd find him staring out the window, his chest rising with that machinated rhythm. "You're a good man," he'd say, as if reminding me. I started calling him Dad. Not out loud, not at first. But in my head, that's what he was. My real dad didn't cross my mind much anymore. When he did, it was like thinking of an old scar you don't touch anymore. Then one night, Harold said, "I wrote you into the will. It's not much. Just the house and a little savings. But it's yours." I choked. "You don't have to do that." "I want to." He looked at me, tired but proud. "You're my son." That was the first time he said it outright. And it broke something open in me. A kind of grief and love and safety all tangled together. And beneath it all, fear. Because I knew I was going to lose him. The end came slow. Then fast. Like the way a storm crawls across the sky and suddenly crashes everything down. By the time I turned 17, Harold needed help for everything. Getting dressed, eating, walking to the bathroom. I learned to change oxygen tanks in my sleep. I read medical pamphlets like scripture. He apologized a lot near the end. Said he felt guilty for being a burden. I told him, again and again, "You saved my life. You are the opposite of a burden." The night he died, he asked for one thing. "Tell me something you're proud of. Something you did." I hesitated. Then said, "I stayed. I didn't run. I could have given up on everything, but I didn't." He smiled. "Good. Hold on to that." Then he closed his eyes. And didn't open them again. The funeral was small. A few neighbors, an old friend from church, a nurse who had grown fond of him. I gave a eulogy I barely remember, but people told me later it made them cry. I remember looking down at the casket and whispering, "Thank you for being my dad." Afterward, I walked back to the empty house, sat in the den, and just let it hit me. He was gone. And I wasn't a kid anymore. I aged out of the system quietly. No social workers came knocking. I'd been living with Harold for 3 years by then. and I guess everyone just looked the other way. I stayed in the house, kept paying the bills using what he left behind, and when that ran out, I worked more. Grocery store mornings turned into night shifts at a warehouse. On my 18th birthday, I took my GED and passed. College seemed impossible. So I enrolled in night classes. HVAC, plumbing, electrical. Anything I could learn with my hands. Harold would have liked that. He always said, "Skills'll feed you when luck won't." I got certified. Picked up small contracts. Word spread that I work hard and charged fair. Before long, I was busy every week. But I still had bad nights. Dreams where I was back in that house with my real father, begging to be seen. Waking up to Harold's old recliner was the only thing that settled me. One day, while rewiring a fuse box, a client said, "You remind me of my dad. Quiet, but solid." I laughed. Quiet, sure. Solid. I didn't feel it. But I was trying. Then I got a call that would dig up everything I thought I buried. My little brother. He wanted to see me. He found me through some mutual contact. I never asked to. The message was simple. "Hey, I don't know if you want to talk, but I'd like to see you. I think about you a lot. I'm sorry." It took me 3 days to write back. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't know what I wanted. Closure? Revenge? A chance to rewrite the past? Maybe I just wanted to see if he regretted anything at all. We met at a small diner halfway between our lives. He looked older than I remembered, but still had that easy smile everyone used to love. I noticed he wore the same cologne our dad used to wear. That cheap, overconfident scent. "Hey, man," he said, standing awkwardly. I nodded. We didn't hug. He started talking before we even sat down. About how things had gotten worse after I left. How Dad got meaner, colder. How he used to hide in his room, hoping not to be noticed. How he always felt guilty for not speaking up when I was thrown out. "I was just a kid," he said, eyes down. But I knew it was wrong. I didn't know what to say. There was still a part of me that remembered his smug little face at Christmas while I opened socks and he got a new bike. But I also saw the tremble in his hands now. The where. "I wanted to tell you." He paused. "Dad's sick. Real sick. He's asking about you." That landed like a punch. I stared at my coffee until it went cold. I didn't answer right away. I think he expected some big emotional response, but I just sat there, weighing silence. "He wants to apologize," my brother added. "He says he doesn't remember what he said to you that night." That stung more than if he had remembered. Like my whole collapse was just a footnote in his mind. "He's dying," he said. "And I think he just wants peace." I finally spoke. He got peace when he threw me out. I had to fight for mine. My brother didn't argue. He nodded, like he knew he didn't have the right to push. "If you want to come by, he's at home. Hospice comes every day." I didn't say I would. But I went. The house looked the same, but smaller. Like something once terrifying had deflated. The paint peeled more. The porch creaked louder. I almost turned around, but something made my feet move forward. My brother answered the door. He didn't say anything. Just stepped aside. And there he was, lying in the same recliner he used to yell from. Eyes sunken, skin pale, and bruised with time. He looked up, and smiled like I'd just come home from school. His voice was thinner than I remembered. Frail. "Look at you," he rasped. "All grown up." I stood there, silent. He tried to sit up, but couldn't. My brother fetched him a glass of water while I remained rooted to the floor. "I wasn't a good father," he said after a long pause. "I know that now." My laugh came out bitter. "Took you long enough." He didn't argue. Just looked at me like he was seeing something in my face he hadn't allowed himself to see before. I was angry. All the time. I don't even remember why anymore. I could feel heat rising behind my eyes, but I didn't let it spill. "You told me I was a mistake. That you never wanted me. Do you remember that?" His face twisted. Like the words hurt more than he thought they would. I don't remember saying that. But I believe you." Silence. Then, I was wrong. I was wrong about you. My brother had quietly left the room. I looked at the man in front of me, the one who once had power over every breath I took. And now he was gasping for his own. I said, "I made it without you." He closed his eyes. Maybe from shame. Maybe from peace. Then I turned and walked out the door. The air outside hit different. Lighter, somehow. Like I'd been holding my breath for 15 years and finally exhaled. I got in my car, the one I bought after saving for years while working 2 jobs and finishing school. A car I used to dream about when I walked miles to class. I sat behind the wheel and just stared at the house through the windshield. No one followed me out. No curtain moved. Just silence. I didn't cry. This is the end of this incredible story. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Sometimes people can make mistakes, but the main thing is to learn to admit it. I am very curious to know what you would have done in the protagonist's place, so please leave at least a short comment. And now for the next story. Thank you all for watching. I hope these stories have helped you think about things you never thought about before. Have a nice day, and I'll be waiting for you again. I still remember the sound of her keys jingling just before the front door slammed shut. It was the sharp, final punctuation mark to every fight, every drunken meltdown, every night she decided to disappear. I was 6 the first time I noticed the pattern. My brother, Jamie, was 15. He always knew what to do. After she left, he'd gather me up in his arms and whisper, "It's okay, I got you." And he always did. He'd microwave some canned ravioli, make a pillow fort, and distract me with old DVDs we'd watched 100 times. Sometimes he'd put on a brave face, even crack a joke. But sometimes, when he thought I was asleep, I'd hear him crying in the bathroom. Our mom wasn't always like that. Or maybe she was, and I was too young to see it. Jamie never gave her the benefit of the doubt. "Don't wait for her," he'd say. "She ain't coming back the way you want." I wanted to believe he was wrong. But every time I hoped she'd change, she'd fall right back into her cycle. Promise, relapse, disappear. Jamie started working part-time under the table when he was 16. Cleaning up construction sites, fixing up bikes, anything to keep us fed. By the time he was 17, he dropped out of school completely. "You can still make it out," he'd tell me. "You're the smart one. You get the grades. I already messed up. I'm just making sure you don't." I hated when he talked like that. Like his life was already over. One night, after Mom had been gone for almost 2 weeks, I asked him, "Why doesn't she care about us?" He looked at me for a long time, eyes hard. "She never did. And she never will. So stop waiting." He never talked about her after that. But I couldn't stop thinking about her. Jamie couldn't cook anything that didn't come from a can or a box. But I never complained. On nights we had Kraft mac and cheese or SpaghettiOs, he'd call it gourmet night, and we'd laugh like it was some joke only we understood. At school, I lied a lot. Told my teacher's mom worked nights and that Jamie was just helping out until she got back on her feet. Some believed me. Some didn't. One time, Mrs. Carver pulled me aside and said, "You can talk to me if anything's wrong at home." I just shook my head and said, "Everything's fine. Jamie takes care of me." And he did. He packed my lunches even when we barely had food. Sometimes it was just dry cereal in a sandwich bag and a slice of American cheese wrapped in foil. I didn't care. That lunch meant someone loved me. One afternoon I came home from school to find Jamie sitting on the couch, a crumpled envelope in his hands. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. "What's that?" I asked. He shoved it into his pocket quickly. "Nothing. Just junk mail." But he was quiet for the rest of the day. That night, he didn't make dinner or crack jokes. Just sat outside on the porch, staring into the dark like it might answer something for him. I watched from the window for a while, wondering what was in that envelope. Something told me it wasn't junk mail. Something told me it had to do with Mom. But I didn't ask. Not yet. I was 9 the first time I heard her voice again. Jamie had left his phone on the kitchen counter while he was in the shower, and it lit up with a missed call. The voicemail icon blinked at me like a heartbeat. I shouldn't have listened. I know that. But curiosity was louder than guilt. "Hey, Jamie. I don't even know if this is still your number. It's me. I was just wondering how you're doing. How he's doing. I think about you both every day. I'm clean now. I promise." Her voice cracked. There was a long pause. Anyway. I'm sorry. I love you. Then it ended. My chest felt like it was collapsing in on itself. It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it. Like someone who wanted to mean it, even if they didn't know how. When Jamie came out of the bathroom, towel around his shoulders, I was still staring at the phone. She called, I said quietly. He froze. Looked at the phone. Then me. His expression turned cold. Did you listen to it? I nodded. He took the phone, deleted the voicemail, and turned it off. She doesn't get to come back just because she feels bad. She said she loves us, I whispered. Yeah. Well, she said that before, remember? He walked into his room and shut the door. I heard the lock click. I sat there in the kitchen for a long time, holding my knees to my chest. Something about the way he locked the door felt different this time. Not just like he was shutting her out. It felt like he was shutting me out, too. The voicemail incident became a silent wound between us. Jamie never brought it up again, and neither did I. But something shifted. He started being more careful with his things. Passwords. Locks. Privacy. Like I had broken some sacred trust. It was almost a year later when I found the picture. I was looking for an old board game in the hallway closet, digging past boxes of winter clothes and tangled extension cords, when I saw a dusty shoe box with my name written on the lid in Jamie's blocky handwriting. Inside were a few of my school drawings, report cards, a tiny pair of mittens I barely remembered wearing, and beneath it all, a framed photo. It was of me, Jamie, and Mom. All three of us smiling. I must have been around 3. Jamie was grinning like a goofball, his arm around me. And Mom, she looked young. Healthy. Her eyes clear. I stared at it for a long time, my fingers tracing the glass. Where'd you get that? Jamie's voice startled me. I turned, guilty. He was standing in the doorway, face unreadable. It was in that box, I said. He walked over, took the frame gently from my hands. You don't need this. Why not? We look happy. He exhaled sharply. Because it was a lie. A few good days don't erase the rest. I didn't argue. But that picture haunted me. Because it didn't feel like a lie. It felt like something we lost. Or maybe something we had once, for a minute, before it all broke. That night, I dreamed of her. Not the mom who left us, but the one in the photo. And I woke up crying. My 10th birthday was the first one Jamie really tried to make special. He bought a little cake from the grocery store, the kind with thick, overly sweet icing and plastic balloons on top. He stuck in 2 candles, one for me, one for him. Why 2? I asked, watching the flames flicker. One for you turning 10. One for me making it this far. I didn't get it then, but I do now. Back then, every year he kept us afloat was a battle one. We sat at the table, just the 2 of us. No party hats, no guests. Jamie played an old cassette from our mom's collection, some soft, acoustic track she used to hum while folding laundry when things were better. Or maybe just quieter. You remember when she used to sing this? I asked. Jamie's jaw tightened. She didn't sing it for us. She sang it to escape. Still, he let the music play. Later that night, I found another envelope on the kitchen table. This time, Jamie didn't hide it. It was addressed to me. Sloppy handwriting, barely legible. I opened it slowly. Inside was a birthday card. A cartoon bear with a party hat and a handwritten message. Happy birthday, baby. I'm trying to get better. I miss you every day. Love, Mom. No return address. I looked at Jamie. He was leaning in the doorway, arms crossed. She tracked us down again, didn't she? I asked. He nodded. Don't get your hopes up. Cards are easy. Showing up is what matters. Still, I read the message again and again. And later, when he wasn't looking, I tucked the card under my pillow. By the time I was 11, I had gotten used to disappointment wearing a familiar face. But it still found ways to surprise me. Jamie usually picked me up from school. We didn't have a car, so he'd walk or take the bus, rain or shine. Always there, waiting by the brick pillar outside the main office. But one afternoon, after a big math test I was sure I'd aced, he wasn't there. I waited. 5 minutes. Then 15. The office secretary asked if I needed to call someone. "I'm good," I said, heart pounding. Maybe he was stuck in traffic. Maybe the bus was late. By the time the hallway lights dimmed and the janitor started mopping, I gave in and called the house. No answer. I walk home. It was nearly an hour. My backpack got heavier with every step. When I finally made it to our street, I saw Jamie sitting on the curb, head in his hands. He looked up when he heard my footsteps. Relief washed over his face so fast it hurt to see. "Where were you?" I asked, breathless. He stood, pulling me into a hug. "I'm sorry. I should have been there." He didn't offer an excuse, and I didn't ask for one. Later that night, after dinner, he finally said, "She showed up today." I froze. "What?" "Came to the job site. Said she wanted to talk. Said she's sober now, in a program." My heart twisted. "What did you say?" I told her to stay the hell away. There was silence between us, so thick I could hear the refrigerator humming across the room. "I want to see her," I whispered. Jamie looked like I'd slap him. "No, absolutely not." "Why?" "Because people like her don't change. They pretend. They say the right things. Then they burn everything down again." I didn't say anything more. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking, if she could find him, maybe she could find me, too. Maybe she already had. After Jamie told me she showed up, something in the house shifted. Not physically, but in the way the air felt heavier, like it carried a silence that wasn't empty but full of everything we weren't saying. A week later, I started checking the mailbox after school. Every day. I'd grab the stack of bills, coupons, junk, and sift through it like I was searching for gold. Looking for my name. Hoping maybe she'd write again. Hoping she hadn't listened to Jamie when he told her to go. But there was never anything for me. One day, Jamie caught me in the act. I was crouched by the mailbox, flipping through envelopes like a detective trying to crack a case. "You expecting something?" he asked, tone casual but eyes sharp. "No," I said, too fast. He didn't say anything. Just walked past me, into the house. That night, I waited until he fell asleep. Then I crept into his room. His desk drawer was locked. Always was. But he'd once shown me where he kept the key, in the air vent behind his dresser. I told myself I just needed to know. Just wanted the truth. That it wasn't betrayal, it was curiosity. The drawer was stuffed with papers. Receipts, pay stubs, eviction warnings, and letters. Dozens of them. All from her. Some addressed to Jamie. Some to both of us. A few were just for me. My hands trembled as I opened one. "Dear baby, I know you probably don't remember much of me. I don't blame you. I wasn't the mother you needed. But I'm trying now. I got a job at a bakery. I haven't used in 92 days. I didn't finish reading. I couldn't. I looked at the dates. Some went back over a year. One was postmarked 3 weeks ago. He never gave me any of them. I sat on the floor, surrounded by words that were meant for me. Words Jamie never let me hear. And I knew, in that moment, he hadn't just been protecting me. He was hiding something, too. The next morning, I couldn't look at Jamie the same way. He made eggs, oversalted like always, humming to some classic rock tune from the kitchen radio. His eyes crinkled when he smiled at me, like nothing was wrong. Like he hadn't hidden years of letters, years of her trying. "Sleep okay?" he asked, sliding the plate toward me. I nodded, swallowing my guilt with the food. I couldn't tell him I knew. Not yet. I didn't even know what I wanted to say. All day at school, the questions churned in me. Why did he hide them? Was he afraid she'd hurt me again? Or did he just not want to share me? That night, I went back into the drawer. I read more of the letters. She talked about rehab meetings, a roommate named Carla, even sent sketches she drew during art therapy. They weren't great, but they felt real. Honest. Then I found one that made my blood run cold. "Jamie, please let me see him. Just once. He doesn't even have to know it's me. I just want to know he's okay. I know you hate me. I probably deserve that. But he doesn't. He deserves the truth. Please don't keep me out of his life just because you're angry." It was dated around my 9th birthday. That was the year I found the card she somehow sent anyway. So she hadn't stopped trying. She was shut out. By Jamie. I wanted to be furious. To scream at him for robbing me of something that might have mattered. But the thing that hurt most was knowing he thought he was doing the right thing. He thought he was protecting me from her. But maybe, just maybe, he was protecting himself, too. I couldn't pretend anymore. That weekend, after 2 nights of barely sleeping and days of walking through school like a ghost, I confronted him. We were sitting on the balcony, the sun starting to set, painting the cracked pavement below in burnt orange. "Why didn't you tell me?" she wrote. I asked quietly. Jamie's head turned so fast I saw panic flash across his face. Then it vanished, replaced with that same tired wall he always put up when it came to Mom. "What are you talking about?" "I found the letters," I said. "All of them." Silence. For a moment, the only sound was a dog barking 2 streets over. He looked away. "You went through my stuff." "I had to," I said. "You weren't telling me anything." He let out a long breath. "Because you didn't need to know." "You don't get to decide that." "Yes, I do," he snapped, standing suddenly. "You think she was going to come back and fix everything with some handwritten crap and a sketch of a cat? You think that makes up for leaving us in a moldy apartment with no heat in winter?" "I don't know what it makes up for," I said, my voice cracking. But I had the right to read it. His eyes glistened, and for the first time in a long time, Jamie looked scared. "If you had started writing her back," he said quietly, "she would have let you down again. And I couldn't let her do that to you. Not after everything." I wanted to yell at him. Tell him that love isn't protection, it's honesty. But I couldn't. Because deep down, part of me still believed he did it out of love. Twisted love. Possessive love. And that was the worst kind. The kind that sounded like sacrifice but felt like control. I left him on the balcony. He didn't follow me. That night, I wrote a letter of my own. I didn't know where to send it. But I wrote it anyway. I didn't sleep again that night. Just kept staring at the folded letter on my nightstand. The one I'd written to her. No address. No stamp. Just thoughts I'd carried for too long finally laid bare. The next morning, I skipped school. I told Jamie I wasn't feeling well, and for once, he didn't argue. Maybe he was too tired from the night before. Maybe he felt guilty. Either way, he left for work without saying much. When the door closed, I did something I hadn't done since I was a kid. I pulled out the old landline we never used. Jamie kept it unplugged most of the time, but it still worked. In the back of one of Mom's old letters, buried in the corner in smeared ink, was a number. No area code. Just 7 digits. I dialed it. Ringing. My heart beat louder with every tone. Part of me hoped it would be disconnected. But then, hello. A woman's voice. Soft. Hesitant. "Hi," I said, my voice trembling. Is this Carla?" A pause. "Yes. Who's calling?" I'm looking for someone named Lisa. I think she lived with you." Another pause. Then, cautiously, "Are you her son?" My throat tightened. "Yes." She was quiet for a long time. "She talked about you all the time," Carla said finally. "She has a photo of you too. Keeps it in her wallet. Wouldn't let anyone touch it." I blinked hard, eyes burning. Is she okay?" "She's trying. Some days are better than others. She goes to meetings. Draws a lot. Doesn't talk about the past much. But she never stopped talking about you." I didn't know what to say. I just let the silence stretch, heavy and full. Then Carla said, "Do you want me to tell her you called?" I hesitated. Jamie's voice echoed in my mind. She doesn't get to come back just because she feels bad. But then I remembered that voicemail. That card. The letters. "Yes," I whispered. "Please." 2 days later, Jamie came home with a serious look on his face. I was sitting at the kitchen table, thumbing through one of Mom's old photo albums I'd found tucked away in the back of the closet. "Mom called," he said, voice low. "Carla gave her your number. She wants to meet." My heart nearly stopped. "What did you say?" Jamie rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding my eyes. "I told her we'd think about it." "Why would you say that?" Don't you want to see her? He finally looked at me, eyes tired but guarded. I want to protect you. I'm scared, too. What if she's not the person you think she is? What if she hurts you? I swallowed the lump in my throat. Maybe she's changed. Maybe she's trying. He shook his head. Or maybe she just wants to rewrite her mistakes. That night, I barely slept. I kept picturing Mom, worn out but fighting, waiting for me somewhere out there. And Jamie, so strong but broken in ways I didn't understand yet. The next day, Jamie surprised me. We are going. Together. For the first time, I saw a crack in his armor. He wasn't just the fearless protector anymore. He was scared, vulnerable. We met her in a small park near the bakery where Carla worked. Mom looked older than the pictures I'd seen. Lines around her eyes, rough hands, and eyes that held both hope and pain. She didn't say much at first. Just stood there, wringing her hands, fighting tears. Jamie held my hand tightly, and I squeezed back. Mom finally spoke, voice shaking. I never stopped loving you. I'm so sorry. Jamie's jaw clenched. I didn't know what he was going to say. But instead of anger, he said, we are listening. And in that moment, I realized maybe this was the beginning of something I'd never dared to hope for. The meeting with Mom was complicated. She talked about her struggles, how the addiction had taken hold of her like a shadow, how she had tried to claw her way back. But there were long pauses, moments where her eyes seemed to look past us, lost in something darker. Jamie kept his arms crossed, face tight. I noticed how he flinched when Mom mentioned the past, how he barely looked at her when she apologized. After she left, we sat in silence on the park bench. The weight of everything hung heavy. Why didn't you tell me everything before? I asked Jamie, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked at me, tired and fragile. Because some truths hurt more than lies. I wanted to protect you. But you kept her away. Even when she tried. Jamie's jaw tightened. I couldn't risk you getting hurt again. I wanted to scream that protection without trust wasn't protection at all. That I needed both. Instead, I just said, I'm scared. He nodded. Me too. We sat there for a long time, two broken pieces trying to hold something whole. That night, I dreamed again of the photo from the closet, the three of us, smiling, before everything broke. And I knew that healing wouldn't come from forgetting the past but facing it, together. After the meeting, things changed between Jamie and me, but not in the way I expected. At first, there was a cautious openness. Jamie let me ask questions without shutting me down. He shared stories about our childhood, the nights he stayed awake just to make sure I was breathing, the jobs he took that I never knew about, the fights he had with Mom that I was too young to remember. But slowly, the cracks began to show. Jamie started getting defensive when I pressed too hard about the past. Sometimes, he'd avoid my calls or retreat into his room, locking the door tight. He'd snap at me over little things, like when I wanted to keep a letter Mom had left. One evening, after a quiet dinner, I found Jamie sitting on the floor, a pile of old papers spread out, letters, bills, photos, all carefully sorted. When he saw me watching, he looked up with tired eyes. You don't understand, he said. I had to do this. I had to protect you from the truth. Protect me from what? I whispered. He shook his head, wiping a hand across his face. From her mistakes. From her chaos. From the way she could break you. But what if keeping the truth from me broke me anyway? Jamie looked like he was about to say something, then stopped. I just wanted to be the one who saved you. I sat down beside him, heart aching. Maybe, I said softly, the only way to be saved is to face the truth, even if it's messy. He didn't answer, but I saw the weight of that admission settle between us. The more I learned, the heavier the truth felt, not just about Mom, but about Jamie, too. He wasn't just a protector. He was a guardian of his own story, a man who built walls not only to keep the past out but to keep himself in control. One afternoon, I found him sitting alone in the dark, a photo album open but untouched. I sat next to him, hesitant. Why did you hide everything? The letters, the calls, even the photo? I asked. He sighed, eyes fixed on the floor. Because if you knew everything, you might have wanted her back. And I wasn't ready to lose you again. But you lost me, too, I whispered. He finally looked at me, the armor cracking. I wanted to be your hero. The one you could trust. The one who never let you down. I reached out, took his hand. You saved me in many ways, Jamie. But heroes aren't perfect. They make mistakes. And sometimes, they hurt the people they love. He nodded, tears brimming. I'm sorry. For everything. For the first time, I saw not just my big brother, but a man fighting his own battles, flawed and human. We stayed there in the quiet, two broken souls trying to find a way back to each other. It took months, years, maybe, to untangle everything between us. Mom didn't come back fully. Some days she was still distant. Some days she was a ghost of what I'd hoped she could be. But I started writing to her. Not every day. Not all the time. But enough to build a fragile bridge. Jamie and I never went back to how things were before. Our relationship was quieter now, built on shaky truths and painful honesty. He still struggled to let go of the past, and I still wrestled with my own feelings of betrayal. But one night, after a long silence, Jamie said something that stayed with me. I did what I thought was right. I failed you, and I failed myself. I know, I said, but maybe failing is part of learning how to love. We both laughed softly, a small, shaky sound that felt like a beginning. I'm not sure if I've forgiven my brother completely, or even if I've forgiven Mom. Maybe forgiveness isn't the point. Maybe it's just about choosing to carry the messy, complicated love anyway. Because in the end, they were both part of me, flawed, hurting, human. And I'm still here. Still trying. Still hoping. Still loving.